Imagine a world where billionaires hoard wealth in offshore accounts while millions can't afford basic necessities, where speculation drives up prices on essential goods, where trust in financial institutions has evaporated. Sound familiar? Now here's the crazy part. A Muslim scholar predicted this exact scenario nearly 1,000 years ago. Abu Hamid Al-Ghazali, writing in 1100 CE, warned that when money becomes detached from morality, entire societies collapse from the inside out. And looking at our modern economy, with its runaway debt, widening inequality, and repeated financial crises, it's becoming painfully clear that he understood us better than we understand ourselves. This is Al-Ghazali's Guide to Wealth and Why Money Without Morality Always Inevitably Fails. Let's set the scene. The year is 1100 CE. Europe is struggling through the Dark Ages, fragmented and impoverished. But the Islamic world, it's absolutely booming. Cities like Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo are financial powerhouses. Trade routes stretch from Spain to Persia, carrying silk, spices, silver, and knowledge. Markets are sophisticated, bustling, and wildly profitable. This is the peak of the Islamic Golden Age, a time of incredible wealth creation. And right in the middle of all this prosperity, Al-Ghazali asked a question that nobody else dared to ask. What happens when a civilization gets rich faster than it gets wise? Al-Ghazali wasn't an economist in the modern sense. He was a theologian, a philosopher, and eventually a mystic. But his insights into money and markets were revolutionary. He understood something fundamental that we've somehow forgotten. Money isn't just a tool for buying and selling, it's a moral force, a reflection of the character of the society that uses it. And when that moral foundation crumbles, the financial system crumbles with it. At the core of his philosophy was this idea: money has no intrinsic value. None. Gold and silver coins don't feed you, clothe you, or shelter you. Their worth comes entirely from what they enable: the cooperation, trust, and exchange they make possible. Al-Ghazali compared money to a mirror. A mirror has no value on its own. Its value comes from what it reflects. Money works the same way. It reflects the trust and cooperation of a society. Break that trust and the money becomes worthless. From this foundation, he developed one of his most powerful concepts: dead money. Wealth locked away in chests, buried in courtyards, or hoarded by the rich doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't fund businesses, doesn't create jobs, doesn't feed workers. It starves the economy, freezing what he called the bloodstream of society. Think about that metaphor for a second. If blood stops flowing through your body, you die. If money stops flowing through an economy, the economy dies. Hoarding isn't just greedy, it's economically destructive. And here's where it gets really interesting. Al-Ghazali didn't just condemn hoarding, he condemned any economic behavior driven by manipulation and greed. Merchants who created artificial shortages to drive up prices, condemned. Speculators who profited from crises without creating value, condemned. Business people engaging in deception or exploiting information asymmetries, condemned. He understood, nearly a millennium before modern economists figured it out, that markets only function when they're built on trust. Break that trust and everything collapses. He emphasized ethical behavior in markets and regarded the production and supply of necessities as an obligatory duty, not optional. Obligatory. If you're hoarding food during a famine to drive up prices, you're not just being unethical, you're violating a fundamental social responsibility. The community has a right to access essential goods at fair prices. Your profit motive doesn't override that right. Al-Ghazali also had strong views on interest, or riba, in Islamic terms. He argued that charging interest on loans deflects money from its primary purpose as a medium of exchange. When you lend money and demand more back than you gave, you're treating money as a commodity that generates profit on its own. But money doesn't create value. people create value through work and production. Interest, in his view, was a form of exploitation. It allowed the wealthy to extract wealth from borrowers without contributing anything productive to society. Now, let's fast forward to today. We live in an age where the wealthiest 1% own more than half the world's wealth, where stock buybacks and financial engineering generate more profit than actual production, where housing has become an investment vehicle instead of a basic necessity, pricing out entire generations, where massive corporations pay zero taxes while small businesses struggle to survive, where speculation outweighs productive investment and trust in institutions has plummeted. Sound like the kind of society Al-Ghazali warned about? Because it should. Nearly a millennium before modern economists coined the terms, he diagnosed transaction costs, information asymmetry, and moral hazard. He understood that economies don't fail because resources run out. They fail when trust disappears. And trust disappears when people start gaming the system, when profit becomes detached from productivity, when wealth accumulation becomes an end in itself rather than a means to serve society. Here's Al-Ghazali's central warning, the one we desperately need to hear today. Money is a moral ecosystem, and when the moral framework collapses, the financial system follows. You can't build a sustainable economy on greed, deception, and exploitation. You might get rich in the short term. You might see spectacular growth for a decade or two, but eventually the system breaks. The 2008 financial crisis, a breakdown of trust, banks lying about mortgage quality, credit agencies giving fake ratings, regulators asleep at the wheel. The Great Depression, rampant speculation, and massive inequality. Every major financial collapse in history has followed the same pattern: moral decay followed by economic collapse. Al-Ghazali believed in markets. He believed in trade, in profit, in economic growth. But he insisted that all of it had to operate within a moral framework. Justice, peace, and stability were preconditions for economic progress. Without those foundations, prosperity becomes a house built on sand. It looks impressive until the first storm hits, and then it all comes crashing down. So what's the lesson here? It's not that we need to abandon capitalism or return to medieval economics. It's that we need to remember what Al-Ghazali understood 1,000 years ago. Economic systems are human systems. They reflect our values, our ethics, our sense of responsibility to each other. When we prioritize short-term profit over long-term sustainability, when we tolerate massive inequality and exploitation, when we allow money to become detached from morality, we're not just being unethical, we're building a system destined to fail. Al-Ghazali's Guide to Wealth isn't ancient history. It's a warning for today, and we ignore it at our peril.